Imagine standing on an abandoned runway at midnight, when suddenly you hear the ghostly roar of a Spitfire engine, but no plane is there. These RAF airfields may be closed, but they're far from empty. Tonight, we're uncovering the UK's most terrifying military hauntings, where phantom pilots still patrol, ghostly whispers echo in empty hangars, and something unseen walks the darkened corridors. These stories chilled the bravest airmen, and they'll haunt you too. If you dare, join me as we explore the 10 most haunted RAF bases, but be warned, you might want to leave the lights on. Help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers before September 2025. Hit that subscribe button and join our community of paranormal explorers today. 1. RAF Coltaw. RAF Coltaw, a former Royal Air Force station in Norfolk, has gained a reputation as one of the UK's most haunted airfields, with numerous reports of ghostly encounters over the years. The site operated from 1939 until its closure in 2006, serving as a key base during World War II and the Cold War. Many believe that the spirits of past pilots and aircrew still linger, their presence felt in the empty hangars and abandoned runways. One of the most famous ghost stories involves sightings of a phantom pilot walking near the old control tower. Witnesses, including former RAF personnel and urban explorers, have reported seeing a man in vintage flying gear, believed to be a World War II aviator who died in a crash. Some claim he appears suddenly before vanishing, while others say they've heard unexplained footsteps or the sound of an invisible aircraft engine roaring to life. A security guard patrolling the site at night once reported seeing a shadowy figure inside a locked hangar, only for it to disappear when he investigated. Another eerie tale revolves around the officers' mess, where staff and visitors have experienced strange phenomena. Cold spots, disembodied voices, and the feeling of being watched are common. Some have even reported seeing a ghostly figure sitting at a table, dressed in an old RAF uniform, who fades away when approached. A former employee claimed to have heard laughter and clinking glasses in the empty building late at night, as if a party from decades past was still happening. Perhaps the most chilling account comes from a group of urban explorers who visited the abandoned airfield after dark. They recorded what sounded like faint radio chatter, distorted voices calling out coordinates and flight codes, despite no equipment being present. Later, one member of the group swore he saw a glowing figure near a derelict aircraft shelter before it vanished into thin air. While some dismissed these stories as mere folklore, the consistency of the reports over the years suggests something unexplained lingers at RAF Coltaw. Whether it's the residual energy of wartime tragedies or the restless spirits of fallen airmen, the airfield remains a hotspot for paranormal activity, proving that even after its closure, the past never truly leaves. 2. RAF West Rainham. RAF West Rainham, a decommissioned Royal Air Force station in Norfolk, has long been a hotspot for ghostly encounters and unexplained phenomena. Opened in 1939 and closed in 1994, the airfield saw active service during World War II and the Cold War. Over the years, visitors, urban explorers, and even former personnel have reported eerie experiences that suggest the base is far from abandoned, at least in the spiritual sense. One of the most persistent legends is that of a ghostly airman seen wandering the derelict control tower and surrounding buildings. Witnesses describe a shadowy figure in RAF uniform, sometimes glimpsed through broken windows or standing silently in doorways before vanishing. Some believe he may be the spirit of a pilot who died in a training accident, forever bound to the place where he once served. Paranormal investigators visiting the site have recorded strange electronic voice phenomena, EVPs, unexplained whispers and radio static, even though the base has been without power for decades. Another unsettling hotspot is the old mess hall, where visitors have reported hearing phantom laughter, clinking cutlery, and even faint big band music, as if an invisible wartime dance is still taking place. One explorer claimed to have seen a spectral figure sitting alone at a table, head in hands, before it slowly faded away. Others have felt sudden cold spots or the sensation of being watched, even when completely alone in the building. The most chilling accounts come from the underground bunkers and storage tunnels beneath the airfield. Several people have reported hearing distant footsteps, muffled voices, and even the sound of heavy doors slamming shut. Despite the tunnels being sealed off for years, one team of investigators claimed their equipment malfunctioned inexplicably while down there, with flashlights dying and cameras capturing strange orbs of light. Perhaps the most famous story involves a group of urban explorers who visited the base at night. As they walked through an empty hangar, they heard what sounded like an aircraft engine spooling up, followed by a loud metallic screech, despite no planes having been stationed there for decades. One member of the group later swore he saw a faint, glowing outline of a Spitfire on the runway before it vanished into the darkness. Whether these encounters are echoes of the past or something more supernatural, RAF West Raynham's haunted reputation remains strong. The sheer number of consistent reports over the years suggests that, for some, duty at the airfield never truly ended, even in death. 3. RAF Binbrook. RAF Binbrook in Lincolnshire, operational from 1940 until its closure in 1992, has earned a fearsome reputation as one of Britain's most haunted airfields. Once home to Lancaster and Lightning squadrons, the abandoned base is now a ghostly shell of its former self, but many believe the spirits of its past occupants never left. The most famous legend revolves around the Black Horse Inn, a former officers' mess that stood near the airfield. Locals and visitors have long reported eerie happenings in the now demolished building, including unexplained footsteps, shadowy figures, and even full-bodied apparitions of RAF personnel. Staff and patrons often spoke of a particularly aggressive presence in the cellar, where bottles would fly off shelves unseen and a dark, looming figure was spotted by multiple witnesses. Some believe this was the ghost of a young airman who died in a violent accident nearby, his restless spirit trapped in the place where he once drank with comrades. The airfield itself is no less haunted. Urban explorers and paranormal investigators have reported strange occurrences in the abandoned hangars and control tower, including disembodied voices echoing wartime radio chatter and sudden drops in temperature. One team claimed to have captured EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, of a man sobbing, along with a faint voice whispering, "It's too late." Others have described seeing a spectral figure in flying gear walking across the tarmac at dusk, only to vanish near the old runway lights. The most chilling account comes from a former security guard who patrolled the site in the 1990s. He reported hearing the distinct sound of a Lancaster bomber's engines roaring to life in the dead of night, followed by ghostly voices shouting pre-flight checks, despite the airfield being completely empty. Even the surrounding roads are said to be haunted. Locals tell of a phantom hitchhiker in RAF uniform who appears near the old base gates, asking for a lift to Binbrook before disappearing from the car. Similar stories have been reported for decades, with some drivers swerving in shock as the figure vanishes mid-conversation. Whether these phenomena are residual echoes of wartime trauma or the lingering spirits of fallen airmen, RAF Binbrook's haunted legacy continues to unsettle those who dare to visit after dark. The airfield may be closed, but the past here feels unnervingly alive. For RAF East Kirkby. RAF East Kirkby in Lincolnshire, now home to the Lincolnshire Aviation Heritage Centre, is best known for its preserved Lancaster bomber, Just Jane. But beneath its wartime nostalgia lies something far more unsettling, persistent reports of ghostly encounters that suggest some former residents never left. Visitors, staff, and paranormal investigators have all experienced strange phenomena across the airfield, particularly in the old hangars and control tower. The most common sightings involve apparitions of aircrew in period uniforms, often spotted near the parked Lancaster or wandering the runways at dusk. One of the most chilling accounts comes from a night watchman who reported hearing distinct footsteps following him as he made his rounds. When he turned to look, no one was there, yet the footsteps continued, keeping pace with him until he left the hangar. Others have reported sudden cold spots near the aircraft, along with unexplained banging noises coming from inside the empty bomber when no one was aboard. Staff members have also spoken of tools going missing and reappearing in odd places, as if unseen hands were moving them. Perhaps the most famous ghost story involves the control tower, where visitors have reported seeing shadowy figures in the windows long after the building was locked up for the night. Some claim to have heard faint voices over vintage radios, despite the equipment being disconnected. During a paranormal investigation, one team captured an EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, of a man clearly saying, "We're not alone here," followed by the sound of distant aircraft engines, even though the airfield was silent. The most heartbreaking tale is that of a young airman said to haunt the old barracks. Witnesses describe seeing a pale figure in RAF uniform sitting on a bunk, his head in his hands as if grieving. Some believe he may be the spirit of a crewman who died in a training accident, forever waiting for his squadron to return. Whether these encounters are residual echoes of wartime trauma or something more sentient, RAF Eastkirk's haunted reputation remains strong. The airfield may celebrate history by day, but by night, it seems the past has a way of making itself known. 5. RAF Elvington. RAF Elvington in North Yorkshire, once a bustling World War II airfield, has gained a reputation as one of Britain's most haunted military sites. Now home to the Yorkshire Air Museum, the old base seems to retain echoes of its wartime past, with numerous credible reports of paranormal activity that continue to unsettle visitors and staff alike. The most famous specter is known as the Lady in White, a ghostly figure repeatedly seen near the old control tower and officers' mess. Witnesses describe her as a tall, slender woman in a flowing white dress, often spotted staring wistfully toward the runways before vanishing into thin air. Some believe she may have been a wartime nurse or the widow of a lost airman, forever waiting for someone who never returned. The museum's Halifax bomber exhibit has been the site of particularly intense activity. Security guards have reported hearing footsteps climbing the aircraft's ladder when no one is there, and the distinct sound of someone moving about inside the empty fuselage. One night watchman claimed to see shadowy figures dressed in flight gear walking around the bomber, only for them to disappear when he approached. Museum staff have also reported tools going missing from workshops only to reappear in strange locations, as if moved by unseen hands. Perhaps the most disturbing accounts come from the underground bunkers that once housed operations rooms. Visitors describe sudden drops in temperature, the feeling of being watched, and unexplained banging noises from empty corridors. During a paranormal investigation, a team recorded clear EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, of a man shouting, "Get out," followed by the sound of running footsteps. Others have captured ghostly images in photographs, faint figures in period uniforms standing in doorways or peering from windows. The most tragic story involves reports of a sobbing airman heard near the old barracks. Staff have described waking to the sound of a man weeping in the night, though searches reveal no one present. Some believe this may be the spirit of a young crewman who died in a training accident, forever mourning his lost comrades. Whether these phenomena are residual energy from the airfield's violent past or something more sentient, RAF Elvington's haunted reputation is well earned. The base may no longer send aircraft into battle, but something, or someone, still seems to walk its runways after dark. 6. RAF Upperhayford. Nestled in the Oxfordshire countryside, RAF Upperhayford stands as a haunting relic of Britain's Cold War past. The airfield, operational from 1918 until its closure in 1994, was once a key NATO base for American F-111 fighter bombers, poised to strike at a moment's notice during the tense decades of nuclear brinkmanship. Today, its abandoned runways, decaying bunkers, and hollowed-out hangars are said to be home to something far more unsettling than just crumbling concrete, ghostly echoes of its military past. Visitors and urban explorers frequently report encounters with shadow figures, tall, dark silhouettes that dart across doorways or stand motionless in the corners of empty buildings before vanishing. These apparitions are often described wearing what appears to be flight gear or military uniforms, their presence accompanied by sudden, icy chills. Some believe these phantoms are the lingering spirits of airmen who served here, their duties unfulfilled even in death. One of the most commonly haunted spots is the old control tower, where former staff and paranormal investigators have recorded disembodied voices, sometimes whispering, sometimes shouting commands in American accents. Electronic Voice Phenomena, EVP. Recordings have captured phrases like, "prepare for launch," and, "they're coming in hot," despite the base having been silent for decades. Others have heard the phantom roar of jet engines, as if spectral aircraft are still taking off from the deserted runways. The underground bunkers, built to withstand nuclear strikes, are another hotspot for paranormal activity. Explorers describe an oppressive atmosphere, with many reporting the sensation of being watched or even followed by unseen entities. Some have heard the sound of heavy boots pacing behind them, only to turn and find no one there. A particularly chilling account comes from a group who claimed to hear a radio crackling to life deep inside one of the tunnels, broadcasting nothing but static and faint, garbled speech before cutting out abruptly. Perhaps the most tragic tale is that of a ghostly airman seen near the old barracks. Witnesses describe a young man in a flight suit, his face pale and expressionless, who walks slowly along the perimeter fence before disappearing near the runway. Some speculate he may be the spirit of a pilot who died in a training accident, forever bound to the base where he once served. Whether these encounters are residual echoes of the Cold War's tension or the restless spirits of those who served here, RAF Upperhayford's haunted reputation is well documented. The airfield may be abandoned, but for those who walk its empty corridors at night, it's clear that something, or someone, still lingers in the shadows. 7. RAF Street Aan. Deep in the Vale of Glamorgan, RAF Street Aan carries a chilling reputation as one of Wales' most paranormally active military sites. Operating from 1938 until its 2020 decommissioning, this massive training base housed thousands of service personnel across its history, many of whom, it seems, never truly left. The most famous specter is the Grey Lady, a sorrowful female figure repeatedly seen drifting through the old officers' quarters and medieval-era tunnels beneath the base. Multiple witnesses describe her as a pale woman in dated clothing, often spotted near windows before vanishing. Some believe she may predate the airfield entirely, a lingering spirit from when the land housed a 12th century monastery. The technical training blocks tell darker stories. Night guards report hearing phantom aircraft mechanics, the clang of tools, shouts of instruction, and even the ghostly whine of jet engines testing in long empty hangars. In 2015, a security camera captured unexplained shadows moving across a sealed workshop, with no living person present. The footage, later analyzed by paranormal investigators, showed 3 distinct humanoid shapes walking in formation before disappearing near an old aircraft fuselage used for training. Baroque blocks house particularly unsettling activity. Former service members tell of waking to find their beds shaking violently, only for the phenomenon to stop the moment they turned on lights. Others report being choked by invisible hands or seeing a dark, faceless figure standing at the foot of their beds, an apparition so common personnel nicknamed it, the Watcher. One veteran's account from 2003 describes being held down in his sleep while a raspy voice whispered, "You don't belong here," in his ear. The base chapel holds perhaps the most tragic presence. Visitors describe sudden overwhelming sadness upon entering, with some sensitive individuals bursting into tears for no reason. EVP recordings here have captured children's laughter and a woman singing a Welsh lullaby, eerie remnants from when the chapel doubled as a nursery during World War II. Since the base's closure, urban explorers report even more intense activity. Shadow figures darting between buildings, entire phantom squadrons marching across the parade ground, and the persistent sound of marching boots in deserted corridors. Whether these phenomena stem from wartime tragedies, training accidents, or something far older, RAF St. Athan's ghosts continue to make their presence known, maintaining the base's reputation as a place where the past never quite fades away. 8. RAF Lake Heath. The sprawling grounds of RAF Lake Heath in Suffolk, still an active U.S. Air Force base, carry a disturbing reputation among military personnel and paranormal investigators alike. While modern F-15s scream across its runways by day, many believe older, ghostly aircraft still patrol its skies after dark. The most persistent legend involves phantom jet engine noises, the unmistakable roar of aircraft powering up or landing, heard clearly when no planes are scheduled to fly. Multiple USAF personnel have reported these unexplained sounds, particularly around the old World War II-era hardstands where RAF squadrons once operated. The base theater is ground zero for one of England's most documented military hauntings. Staff consistently report seeing a lone airman sitting in the back row, dressed in 1940s RAF uniform. When approached, the figure vanishes. Cleaning crews tell of finding a single seat warm to the touch in an empty auditorium, with several reporting the smell of old-fashioned pipe tobacco lingering in the air. Security cameras have captured unexplained orbs of light floating through the theater after hours, with one maintenance worker claiming to have seen the entire ghostly audience of World War II airmen watching a non-existent show. Hangar 7 holds particularly chilling energy. USAF mechanics report tools going missing and reappearing in impossible locations, shadowy figures glimpse between aircraft, and the sound of invisible hands banging on fuselages. In 2012, 2 crew chiefs swore they saw a translucent figure in RAF flight gear walking through a closed hangar door. The base's paranormal reputation became so well known that the 48th Fighter Wing once unofficially called in a local medium, who claimed to have made contact with several spirits, including an American pilot who died in a 1950s training accident. The surrounding woodlands tell darker stories. Locals report seeing will-o'-the-wisp lights moving through the trees at night, sometimes forming into the shape of aircraft before vanishing. Several motorists driving near the perimeter at night have reported nearly hitting a hitchhiking airman who disappears upon impact. The most tragic account involves a sobbing woman in a 1940s dress seen near the old base cemetery, believed by some to be a war widow who took her own life after learning of her husband's death in combat. Whether these phenomena stem from the base's long history of wartime losses, training accidents, or something more mysterious, RAF Lake Heath remains one of Britain's most active military paranormal hotspots. The ghosts here seem to defy both time and nationality, with World War II RAF spirits and Cold War USAF apparitions coexisting in the same haunted space. For those stationed here, the saying goes, the dead never leave Lake Heath, they just change uniforms. 9. RAF Scampton. The haunted reputation of RAF Scampton in Lincolnshire stretches back to its days as the home of 617 Squadron, the legendary Dambusters, who carried out one of World War II's most daring bombing missions. Though the airfield remains operational today, many believe the spirits of those wartime crews never left. The most common phenomenon reported is the sound of whispering voices in empty hangars, often caught just at the edge of hearing. Ground crew and visitors describe hearing faint conversations in 1940s-era English, sometimes accompanied by the ghostly smell of cigarette smoke and engine oil. These disembodied voices are often heard near the old brick buildings that once housed the Dambusters, with some witnesses reporting hearing someone clearly say, "Bombs gone," when no one is present. One of the most well-documented hauntings centers on the officers' mess. Staff have reported seeing the apparition of a young RAF officer sitting alone in the corner, dressed in full flight gear. When approached, the figure vanishes. Night cleaners tell of finding chairs mysteriously rearranged in the morning, as if a meeting had taken place overnight. The most chilling account comes from a visiting wing commander who claimed to have seen the entire room filled with ghostly airmen in wartime uniform, sitting silently as if waiting for briefing. The scene faded away when he blinked. The runway itself holds tragic echoes. Several security guards have reported seeing a ghostly Lancaster bomber making its final approach, lights glowing faintly in the dark, only for it to disappear moments before touchdown. This phenomenon often coincides with the anniversary of the Dambusters raid. In 2018, a group of aviation enthusiasts camping near the airfield captured what appears to be engine noises and shouted commands on their recording equipment at exactly 12:16 a.m., the precise time the first Dambusters aircraft took off on their historic mission. Perhaps the most unsettling reports come from the underground tunnels that connect parts of the base. Maintenance workers refuse to enter these areas alone after multiple encounters with a shadowy figure they call the Watcher. Several have reported being followed by unseen footsteps, while others tell of tools being moved or cold spots that seem to track their movement through the passages. One electrician working late claimed to have seen a group of airmen walking toward him in the dim tunnel lights, their figures becoming translucent as they passed straight through him. Whether these experiences are residual echoes of wartime tension or something more sentient remains unclear. What is certain is that RAF Scampton's ghosts seem particularly tied to its most famous squadron. The whispers, apparitions and unexplained phenomena serve as a haunting reminder that for some, the war never ended, they simply changed form. Visitors and personnel alike often remark on the strange feeling of being watched at Scampton, as if the base itself remembers its past more vividly than the living ever could. 10 RAF Woodbridge. Nestled in the Rendlesham Forest of Suffolk, RAF Woodbridge carries one of the most extraordinary haunted reputations of any British airfield, a place where ghost stories intertwine with UFO encounters. The former military base, closed in 1993, is famous worldwide for the 1980 Rendlesham Forest incident, Britain's so-called Roswell, but few realize how many supernatural encounters have been reported here over the decades. The most common phenomena involve sightings of spectral airmen wandering the abandoned runways at twilight. Security personnel stationed here in the 1980s and 90s routinely reported seeing figures in World War II-era flight gear walking across the tarmac, only to vanish when approached. One USAF officer's account describes chasing a pilot who appeared to be limping across the runway. The figure disappeared near the exact spot where a Lancaster bomber had crashed in 1944, killing its crew. The old munitions storage bunkers seem to hold particularly dark energy. Urban explorers describe an overwhelming sense of dread upon entering these concrete tunnels, with many reporting hearing phantom air raid sirens and the sound of running footsteps. In 2015, a paranormal investigation team captured clear EVP recordings of someone screaming, "Get down," followed by an explosion-like sound, despite the complete silence in the physical environment. Several visitors have reported seeing shadowy humanoid shapes moving along the bunker walls, their silhouettes appearing to wear gas masks. The forest surrounding the base adds another layer of strangeness. Locals tell of phantom lights dancing between the trees, not just the famous UFO sightings, but unexplained lantern-like lights that predate the airfield itself. Some believe these may be connected to ancient burial mounds in the area. Motorists driving along the perimeter road at night often report seeing a hitchhiker in RAF uniform who vanishes when they stop to offer help, an apparition so common it's been nicknamed the Rendlesham Ghost. Perhaps most chilling are the accounts from former USAF personnel stationed here during the Cold War. Multiple witnesses describe encountering a man in black, a tall figure in outdated military dress who would appear in restricted areas, then disappear when challenged. Some security logs from the 1980s reference this mysterious intruder who left no footprints in the snow. The base's control tower seems to be a focal point for activity. Visitors report hearing vintage radio chatter and seeing shadow figures in the windows long after the building was abandoned. One paranormal investigator claimed to have photographed a clear image of a face peering from the tower's top window, despite the building being locked and empty at the time. Whether these phenomena stem from wartime tragedies, Cold War secrecy, or something more mysterious, RAF Woodbridge remains a place where the line between ghost story and UFO encounter blurs disturbingly. The airfield may be closed, but something continues to walk its runways, something that doesn't appear in any official flight logs.